of the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company?
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
Neesmith way out on the left edge, centers it to Turner, who bounces once and gives it to Halliburton. Back to Neesmith, attacking, kicks it to the top, and Turner hits a three. He's got a dozen. The Pacers lead by 31 points. Halliburton for three. He made the foul shot and then hit a three from way up top. It's 72-37. Do not adjust your dial. Halliburton drives, pitches it to the perimeter. Nembhard sends it around to the other side of the floor. Turner has it. 7 seconds to shoot. Neesmith attacking. He got to the baseline. Turner with it. 3 to shoot. 2 to shoot. Oh, my goodness! What is happening here? A three from the left side. It's 75-37. Into the forecourt, Neesmith. Turner is feeling it, and why not? Why not? Why not? A three from 2 miles away, out on the left side. This cannot possibly be happening.
It is absolutely insane what's going on in this building right now.
A 41-point lead. Pacers have 4 seconds to score one more time. Here comes Neesmith. He'll get it off from the wing, and of course he hit it. Of course he hit it as the bench empties.
Sweet baby.
Wow. Tonight's final score, the Indiana Pacers 129, the Cleveland Cavaliers 109.
Yeah!
So it is now 3-1 in the Eastern Conference semifinals, and the Pacers are 1 win away from advancing for the second straight year to the finals of the conference in which they play, the Eastern Conference. And indeed, we have, and we now officially can officially say that we have Pacers and Racers, because tomorrow, things get underway in terms of practice for the 109th Indianapolis 500, qualifying this weekend, and at the very least, we know it will go 7 games. Now, Game 7, Eddie, my days all run together. Obviously, tomorrow night is game number 5. Then Game 6, if necessary, would be on Thursday. So I would assume that Game 7 would be Sunday, correct? I know they've already printed it out.
Because they have 2 days off between Game 6 and Game 7.
So Game 7 would be Sunday, so that would be on poll day. That's exactly how it worked a year ago. And there is a ton to get to and celebrate from last night. And the best part about it, the victory of it all, the upshot, is that we don't have to talk about what happened on Friday ever again. We just don't. That was, on Friday, such a letdown and a disappointment because there was so much nervous energy, albeit, but there was so much energy about the game. And then last night, it was interesting. Yesterday was fascinating because, like, for example, at about 5:30, maybe 6 o'clock, Michael in Australia messages me and says, so what's the mood and the feeling in Indy going into the game tonight? And I thought to myself, not a lot, really, because it's Mother's Day. And, you know, everybody's coming off the letdown from Friday. Then Saturday was just perfect. I mean, it was just perfect. The weather was perfect, everything. I was at the Grand Prix. So people are at the Speedway. The sun, I mean, it was perfect. And then yesterday, the weather, again, beautiful, absolutely beautiful outside. And you had Mother's Day, and for those mothers that are there, happy Mother's Day yesterday, or that are here, happy Mother's Day yesterday. For those that, if you are in my age range, you know, a lot of people who have since last Mother's Day lost their mother. And I know for those, it has to be a very difficult day. But that's I think what's on the forefront of people's mind was Mother's Day, and then the fact it's an 8 o'clock start on a Sunday. I was very curious just what the overall buzz and energy was going to be. And Josh Kaufman sang a beautiful rendition of the national anthem, and people were like kind of settling in. And then they got off immediately, did the Pacers to a fast start, and what they did was this. That Cleveland zone, Cleveland played a 2-3 zone that they debuted essentially against Indiana on Friday night, and they put Mobley at the top of it, and it absolutely stifled the Pacers, and the Pacers had no answer for it. All night, no answer. Halliburton was terrible in game 3. I always get confused by that. Game 3, Halliburton was bad. Siakam was kind of a no-show. Siakam was taken out completely, and they were run out of the gym. And 100% kudos to the Pacers coaching staff for coming up with the game plan of, you know what, here's what we're going to do. We're going to run so fast and we're going to play at pace so much that they don't have time to really get into their zone. We're going to come down. We're going to make a quick pass immediately into the inside or on the block to Siakam. And then in the zone slides over, he dumps it into Turner, or you drop Turner back out, and you're constantly moving those front two. Their ball movement was so much better. And I think their ball movement was based on the fact that they were playing at this fast running pace, and that fast running pace was forcing like this chaotic nature of it where the ball then, it just, you never had a chance. It's like if you've ever moved. Eddie, you ever moved?
Yes, a couple times.
It's the worst thing in the world, right?
Oh, my goodness. It's a total hassle.
But at some point when you're moving, you know what you have to do, and at some point you get this adrenaline surge where you're like, this stuff is all going now, and you just start, boom. You just start humming, and you're just grabbing stuff and loading it and grabbing stuff, and you don't even stop to think about it, because if you stop to think about it, you're going to end up resting or whatever, and you don't even have the energy for the adrenaline that goes with it, but you just start flying at such a rate that now all of a sudden you're just putting stuff in boxes and winging it over here. And the Pacers' offense was that way. They didn't have time to stop to do anything, even when they came down and didn't get an immediate first 8 seconds of the shot clock look. They were rotating the ball with this like adrenaline-driven frenzy in such a way that Cleveland was never able to do any sort of collapse or double on their zone, and the Pacers just kept getting good shot after good shot. A huge part of that was Siakam, and his ability to back down and then use his left off the glass was a huge part of that. And obviously Turner. And Turner hitting those shots. Then three-point shooting becomes contagious. And before you know it, everybody is shooting at a high percentage. And before you know it, like, shots are just raining in from everywhere. And if you're Cleveland, you're like, okay, the sky's falling here. And then something happened. Two things happened in fairly quick succession to one another that may have major implication in the overall shift, even though there wasn't necessarily a shift per se, but in the overall shift of this series. The first of which was this. And I know this is not going to be popular opinion in this town, and I get it. I totally understand it. Okay? Totally understand it. But Ben Mathurin was in the wrong. And Ben Mathurin deserved to be ejected. Now, so too did DeAndre Hunter. In that area, no question, legitimate beef. But Mathurin was in the wrong, not necessarily because of and I'd heard. So once that happened, I saw DeAndre Hunter coming down Meridian Street from 3 blocks away. But Mathurin knew, so here's the thing. If Mathurin did nothing wrong, and if Mathurin simply made incidental basketball contact, then why was he standing there with his arms outright waiting for it? He knew exactly what was coming, and he knew he was going to sell it as if literally he had just, like, taken a punch from Tyson in the 10th round. He's standing there waiting for it, and he's standing there waiting for it because he knew, and nobody had seen it to that point. All of a sudden, you're just saying to yourself, wait a minute, did Ben Mathurin say something to him that is causing DeAndre Hunter to go crazy? Like, what just happened here? And then they review it, and during the review is when people were saying, or in the area, they're like, wait a minute, Mathurin hit him in the junk. And then that became, no, actually, it was to the sternum. I think it's possible there may have been both, but either way, Mathurin clearly did more than just an extend the arm out. Go ahead.
I strongly disagree with you there. Strongly disagree. I didn't even think it warranted technical, maybe. That happens on every inbound. A guy shoving off of another guy to get open. That was nothing. A total overreaction by DeAndre Hunter.
Okay.
Whatever that was lasted all of 3 seconds
so let
of
me
that pain that he suffered.
Let me continue with what I was saying.
Yeah.
Okay. So there were many people that said that before they came down the floor at the end of the previous possession that Mathurin had hit him.
Now, that is correct, yes.
Okay, so let me continue.
Yeah.
So Mathurin, at the end of that possession, gives a cheap shot to Hunter, okay? Literally everyone around us is like, no, he completely racked him at the end of the possession before they come across the midcourt stripe, okay? So now all of a sudden there's percolation there, right? Now, as I just said, Eddie, he may well have put his arm out to him in a typical defensive, set or whatever. But when Mathurin was standing there with his arms outright, it is very clearly because Mathurin knew what was coming because he knew he had instigated something. Otherwise, why does he stand 6 feet away? He was standing there before Hunter even moved at him. He was standing there with his arms outright like, come and get me. So if there had been just incidental, non-play, total misunderstanding contact, he would not have been standing there with his arms outright like, come and get me. And as I said, Mathurin's technical was merited. DeAndre Hunter also should have been ejected because of the force with which he retaliated. But very clearly, Mathurin knew that he had done something that instigated that kind of a reaction because he stood there waiting for it to theatrically play up because he knew exactly that Hunter was coming after him. And if it was as simple, you see that from time to time where a guy gets, it's like, whoa, wait a minute, what just happened here? But he stood there for 5 seconds waiting for him to come after him. So clearly he had done something that he knew was going to merit a reaction. But in that moment, when that happened, you're wondering at that point, okay, so what is going to happen from here? And what happened from there was that the Pacers used that almost as a rallying point. I'm not saying that's where they got all of a sudden like hot as a pistol, but I mean, they got red hot primarily very closely after that took place. But two other things took place there. Number one, after that happened and they go to the half, so you have Mathurin removed from the game, and you quite possibly, and this is what I was getting at in terms of two things that could happen that could have great impact in Game 5. They didn't at the moment say it, but later after the half, the officials came to the table to say that they were going to review whether or not Garland left the floor in that skirmish, left the bench, and came onto the floor. And if that's the case, and they said they were going to review it, then Garland would be suspended for Game 5. Now, I don't know whether or not anything came of that, but they definitively said we are reviewing whether or not Garland left the bench during that skirmish.
He just would have been ejected from the game last night. I don't think he would have been suspended for Game 5 just because you can't leave the bench area and it's an automatic ejection of the game.
But he was not ejected from the game. If he was not penalized and they then go back and review that he left the bench and came onto the playing area, he could be suspended for Game 5.
I always get wishy-washy on those because it's like there's times where they call it, there's times where they don't. And it's always hard to know when the player is or is not allowed to come onto the floor like that. I guess it would depend if there was a timeout called and whatnot, or if it was just within the game flow,
I understand. All I'm saying is definitively they came over and said, we are reviewing whether or not, what is his number, 10 or 0? What number is he? Garland.
I think he's 10.
10?
Yeah.
They came over and said, we are reviewing whether or not player 10 left the bench area and came onto the floor illegally during the skirmish. And they said that after the fact. Like they came back over and said, like, we will need that to review. But either way, then you have the second half begins, and I didn't see what led to this. So I don't know if there was, and maybe, again, you're not watching on television, so I didn't see replays, right? But when they came out to warm up for the second half, Donovan Mitchell came out and was over on around the three-point line, and he was moving gingerly, and then at one point, Garland and I think Mobley came over to him. By the way, in the NBA, any player not currently participating in the game who leaves their bench is subject to a minimum one-game suspension without pay and a fine of $50,000. The rule was implemented to discourage bench-clearing brawls and to maintain order during games. So as I mentioned, I'm not saying anything comes of it. They definitively wanted to review whether or not Garland had moved on off of the bench onto the floor. Mitchell at the second half was out warming up on the three-point line, and suddenly he bent over. It looked to me like it was his back. Now, he didn't appear to be favoring his ankle. We now know it was ankle, but he looked like he was favoring his back, oddly enough. But he looked very distressed. And then I did not see this, but the guy in front of me made mention of, they were all making mention of this, that he said, I can't go. The trainer came out and was like kind of working with him, and he said, I can't go. And so he then retreated to the locker room, and at that point, like, no one had made mention of this. Because I don't know, Eddie, you tell me, was there a specific play at the end of the first half where it looked like he rolled his ankle?
No. I don't think so. After the game, he said he'd be fine, and he said everybody in game 2.
I mean, I also understand, and I don't blame the guy for this at all. They were down 41. I mean, do you blame at all them saying, you know what? I mean, what were the odds they were going to come back in that game, right? So people can say, like, well, he's a quitter or whatever else, and I'm like, yeah, but there probably wasn't a lot to be gained by going back out. So, but I will tell you, he was definitely injured. I'm not saying long term, but he definitely was suffering from some sort of trauma to his ankle. But that was an unbelievable night. It was an awesome evening. The crowd was electric. It was loud. I mean, it was loud. When there's just nothing like it. I mean, when Turner hit those threes and the way the crowd erupted, and it is so funny with the ebb and flow of NBA playoff series, it is so funny to me how quickly your emotions and opinions change, because it's so easy after Game 3 to have said, man, the Pacers are in real trouble here. And if they don't get Game 4, I mean, virtually everyone that I talked to yesterday on the way in was saying, man, I got to win this game tonight. Now, yes, if it was 2-2 going back to Cleveland, they still got a shot. But you feel very good about it now because 94% of teams that are up 3-1 win. But you can't dwell on that except for just simply to say they did everything that they needed to do last night, obviously, to now really land. I mean, that was a resounding answer. And if you are Kenny Atkinson and you're Cleveland, you now have to come up with a way and think about a way and reconfigure a way to defensively answer for Indiana, because they solved the Rubik's Cube of the zone. Like Rick Carlisle and the group went to the escape room, and it took a while, but they figured it out, and so now you've got to come up with a different puzzle. Are they going to be able to do that same thing on the road against that zone? We'll see. But what they did last night, and credit Turner and Siakam. And then, and I'm embarrassed that it took this long to get to it, the hero of the game. and this is the beauty of this team, is the hero of the game, once again, different guy each night, right? Eddie, you may disagree with me, but I thought, and Siakam was very, very good last night. But I thought the guy last night that was absolutely the answer for each time that, and it didn't take long before you didn't have to answer much anymore. But the guy that just maintained and kept Indiana in flow and kept the ball alive and hit big shots and created energy and was just Johnny on the spot every single time he needed him to be.
I thought it was Obi Toppin last night.
Bingo. That's exactly who it was.
Yep. I thought him in the second quarter, and then I thought Tyrese got the game rolling. I thought that's what put the Pacers in their flow early. Got the early dunk. He had, 6 points, handful of assists, and then I think he had 5 rebounds in the first quarter.
He was everywhere. And the Dr. J play, I mean, obviously it wasn't like he was thinking to himself, you know what, I'm going to tribute Dr. J on this play because it's 45 years since Dr. J did the famous up and under shot. But and it wasn't probably as dramatic, but it was pretty special when Toppin had the up and under move. And I guess the broadcast pointed out 45-year anniversary of Julius Erving doing the same thing. It was pretty awesome. So we will talk plenty about the game today. We'll also let people join in and celebrate because that's what we try to do on this show. This should be a celebration of not only the Pacers, but now we can start to kind of turn gears towards maybe more so tomorrow because this week, starting tomorrow, we'll be doing the show live from the Speedway, and that's me knocking on wood. Weather permitting, you'll be hearing cars in the background and that sort of a thing. But it was a good weekend at the Speedway as well, and now the real fun begins because the Indy 500 is here. It's May in Indianapolis. Everything about it is awesome. Eddie, your weekend consisted of what?
So I produced the third and final preseason game for the Fever on Saturday. They finished the preseason 3-0. Altered the starting lineup. Sophie Cunningham injured her ankle in the game. It sounds like she'll be okay and ready to go for the Saturday preseason or not preseason, but the regular season opener against the Chicago Sky. And then the Pacers game yesterday. Outside of that, worked a little bit at my other job. How about you, Jake? I can tell you were clearly not in the sun because you don't have the sunglasses little tan line going right now.
Do I have the raccoon line going?
Yeah, you do. You got raccoon eyes.
So let me tell you what was hard. On Friday, yes, I had to think about this. So on Friday, as soon as we were off the air here, I went to the Speedway, and I did the broadcast for IndyCar qualifying and then the first Indy Next race. That time frame is tricky because my location for calling the Speedway for the road course is the turn 2 of the oval, which is the south end of the road course. And I call it the radio network broadcast position for turn 2 now is on the roof of the turn 2 suites. So the only problem with that, it's a great vantage point. It's a great view. It's very cool. Everything about it's awesome, except 2 things. Number 1, it's almost like a blacktop roof. And in the sun, it's a lot. But number 2, because that Indy Next race takes place so late in the day and you're looking to the west, it's almost impossible to identify the cars because you are looking straight into the sun. And literally, they look, when you're driving on the road and the sun is setting and you got like your visors down, whatever, and you can't and like cars in front of you are just glistening. They're just like bright light bulbs. That's what it looks like. So that was tough. And then on Saturday, I was there for the second Indy Next race and then the IndyCar race. And yes, I had on sunglasses and glasses to be able to see what was going on. And yes, I think I had on sunscreen, if you can believe that. But do I look like a raccoon? Is that what you're getting at?
A little bit. You've got it going. Red forehead, pasty white eyeballs.
By the way, if I could, I'm going to look at the camera here.
Red cheeks, red nose, red chin, red side of the face.
Hi there. I'm looking at the folks that are watching on the YouTube stream. Hi there. I'm Jake Query. And Eddie Garrison says, I got it going on. How about that? Let's go. Eddie's got on his Anthony Richardson jersey. Is that going to be the jersey of the starting quarterback of the Colts? That remains to be seen.
I just grabbed this shirt, and I didn't realize what it was until I left the house. I was like,
Might be a Kerry Collins jersey. Mike Chappell going to join us coming up 2 o'clock today. Dustin, our friend from the Indianapolis Star,
Dopira,
will join us at 1 o'clock, and we'll talk more about the Pacers and the Cavs. And we will get you updated on where things might stand in terms of availability for Cleveland as we continue to not necessarily celebrate just yet, but we give you a bit of a pause of caution before your celebration. But 94% is a pretty good percentage. We thank you for listening. We're going to celebrate all day. Pacers now up 3-1 over the Cavs. You're listening to Query & Company here, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. I'm genuinely curious as to which way this goes moving forward. What we know is this. Donovan Mitchell, in terms of the ankle injury that kept him out of the game for the second half, he came out at the intermission, and they had Slottick, I believe is the fellow's
He was
name.
back?
Slottick he's become a staple now. I don't know if he lives in the area or if they just have him on short dial, but that's seemingly like the fifth time that Slottick has done the halftime show.
Yeah.
He stacks plastic chairs, and then he does like a handstand once he gets to the top, and then he very aggressively yells at the camera.
Really?
But I'm happy to see he's changed outfits. He used to wear a
schmedium?
Yes, he wore a onesie that was like a halvesy. You know what I mean? Very uncomfortable.
By the way, did you say you made it back in time on Friday for Game 3?
I missed the first quarter.
So you're the reason they lost.
I
Because you
walked
weren't
in.
there at tip.
They were down 3 when I walked in. Yes, and then all hell broke loose. And it's funny to me the number of people that are like that sent me a thing that they saw me on television, which is cool. But
In your Why Not Indiana shirt?
I did have my shirt on. Yes. Chad Buchanan said he liked my shirt. I will say that it illuminated to me how few people must watch in the regular season because we sit in the same seats for every game, right? And then all of a sudden people are like, whoa, like I see you on TV. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, when there's a bunch of people wearing gold and there's just like you stick out like a sore thumb.
I put the gold on.
You did?
Yes. But when I first got there, because I missed the first quarter, I couldn't find my shirt.
Oh.
Because, people it's like, oh, there's an empty seat with a shirt on it. And so, like, someone grabbed a shirt, and then eventually somebody got me a shirt. But either way.
Hold the phone. Shannon didn't save your shirt?
No, she's busy chatting with Linda and everybody else.
Oh.
She wasn't even aware that I wasn't there.
Okay, well, if it was John, she sure as hell would have saved that shirt.
That is correct. So, at any rate, that game in particular, the start of it, in the second half, as I mentioned, Donovan Mitchell came out, and Mitchell, apparently what happened was he re-aggravated an already existing ankle injury. That's the latest word here, and he is now considered to be day-to-day, which means that he is probably expected to go. I would assume takes whether it be a cortisone or, whatever it would be, but they're going to do everything they can to get him out on the floor. But I would anticipate that Donovan Mitchell absolutely is on the floor. The question about Cleveland and the Pacers would be, for me, the following. Cleveland has won 64. They're a 64-win team. They've had an unbelievable year. They've had multiple 12-game or more win streaks over the course of the season. They were the last team to lose their first game in the NBA this year. They have talent. Evan Mobley is really good. Garland, Mitchell, they got a lot of talent. Strus has become a little bit of an instigator. DeAndre Hunter is a good defender. Mobley's an unbelievable defender. And yes, somebody said, wait a minute, is it a 2-3 zone or a 3-2 zone? It kind of is it's almost like a 2-1-2 zone, truth be told. But I guess if you had to classify it, you would say 3-2 more than the other. But either way, what I want to know is this. With all the buildup, all the hype, all the expectation, all the pressure now is on Cleveland, clearly. And they are still relatively a young team. Now, Donovan Mitchell's been to the playoffs, I think, 8 or 9 times, never been in the conference finals. He's a wonderful talent and kind of a quiet star. He's a very, very good player. When he starts penetrating towards the basket, he's a difficult guy. He's a lot to handle. With all of that said, however, I wonder if Cleveland, are they going to come back and be what we saw in Game 3? Or, and I don't know the answer to this. I'm not even implying this is the case, but you can't rule it out. Is it possible that Cleveland now mails it in? It doesn't look like a group that is ready to start heading to Cancun, but you have to wonder about it, right?
I mean, look at the way they've lost these 3 games. Like, you've got the collapse in Game 2. You've got the come-from-behind win for the Pacers in Game 1, and in a game where Cleveland probably should have won because they had their ancillary pieces playing very well, and then you just get absolutely dominated in Game 4. And it looked like the Pacers were just going through the motions in Game 3. So it'll be fascinating, Jake. I don't know if the Pacers will lose 3 straight, but there's going to be so much pressure on them in Game 6 if it comes to that.
You're right. I mean, it's
on Thursday.
They have to if they drop Game 5, they have to win Game 6, right? Because nobody, and who knows? Last year they went and won a Game 7 on the road, right?
In the Garden, won by 32 points, right, or something ridiculous.
They did pull away, right?
Yeah, they whooped the Knicks in that game
because New York had just run out of speed.
I believe that was also on Mother's Day.
But the point being this, I would assume that Cleveland now makes a defensive adjustment because the Pacers absolutely tore apart that zone, and they were totally befuddled and silenced by that zone in Game 3. But they came back on Sunday, and they had every answer. And a lot of it was the intermediary pass, because what they were doing is, you flash to the middle of the zone, whether it be with Turner or Siakam, or you just get it. You notice that instead of trying to throw over Mobley in particular is so long, right? But instead of trying to throw over the zone and get it down to Siakam on the block, they obviously, what they were doing was either penetrating into the middle of the lane or making one pass, and then that pass is an immediate dump down low, boom, one more into Siakam or Turner. And then Siakam's ability to go with his left is so big because he backs down and then he gets the collapse help, but he knows that if he spins to his right and uses his left hand, that he can score. And he did that, I think, on 3 straight possessions. And once you do that, it opened everything up. It just did. It opened everything up. But I'm very curious to see because there's going to be an answer. There's going to be some sort of alteration or change to what happens. Now, I'm also curious to this with the T-shirts. Yesterday it was towels, right? Are they running out of the towels are cool. It's a pretty cool. Let's see here. I mean, these are cool because now don't ever wash this towel because I got a feeling that it all goes away instantly. But the towel with Boomer, the Boom Baby towel. The Boom Baby towel with Boomer on it. I mean, let's go Pittsburgh Steelers towel, right? Just terrible towel, rally towel, you name it. Eddie's got his in here. You haven't used this for anything, have you?
No.
Okay. I'm not going to lie to you. With the towels yesterday, I shouldn't mention this. So the towel last night at the game, I have very dry cuticles. It's a very strange thing about me. I have dry cuticles. So my dry cuticle, one of them, it got nicked a little bit, and so it was bleeding, and, I'm on the blood thinners. So then that just becomes a nonstop geyser.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't have a Band-Aid, and so I say to Shannon, hey, can I grab that towel real quick? I need to press my finger on it. And she says, and I quote, I think I might have used that on my nose. Really? Okay. It's a rally towel. It's a rally towel, right?
I've been told that if it gets to Game 6, Jake, there will be T-shirts.
Okay. I mean, I would assume that, but I wonder, what the T-shirt allotment and or the number of phrases that they can use are. You know what I mean? They've done Boom Baby. I did see a great tweet from somebody. You were talking about the diff with Cleveland. And last night when it was 41, somebody tweeted and said, does the diff even figure math this high? Thought it was a pretty solid line. All right, we come back. Again, Dustin Dopira going to join us top of the hour. We'll get into more on the Pacers and the Cavs. But on the other side, it is May as well. So we'll do a little chat on what you can expect for the upcoming running of the Indy 500. Of course, hard to know without cars on the track just yet, but I'll kind of get you up to speed, pardon the pun, on what's going to happen over the next week at the Speedway. We'll do it next. So it's upon us. Practice beginning tomorrow for the 109th running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race, which means cars out on the track. Now, you don't even talk about the possibility of anything other than sunny skies, right? And I've not looked at the forecast. My understanding is tomorrow, I think all week, this time of year, there's always the chance of like some pop-up thing. But if you are planning on going out tomorrow, here is the schedule for the week. Practice tomorrow is from 12:15 to 2:15, so the first 2 hours of it is rookie orientation and refresher course. I think most of you know this, but what that means is if you are a rookie, and I'm not sure which, sometimes during the open test, some of the drivers would have already gone through rookie orientation. But those that are listed as a rookie for the 500, you've got to go out. Robert Schwartzman comes to mind. And you do laps at intervals. You have to do so many laps, between 100 to 150, and then another, maybe 20 laps between 150 and 200. And then once they clear you, you work your way up. And actually, drivers will tell you that those cars are made to feel the most comfortable at 220, 230. So when you're doing 150 or 160, that's actually the hard part. It's kind of like if you are on an airplane and when you take off and you first are going through the clouds and that's where the turbulence is before you get up to your cruising altitude and then you're kind of home free. I think it's the very similar sensation. I'm not a driver, but in a race car. At any rate, the rookie orientation and then the refresher is the same. Someone like Ryan Hunter-Reay, who has not been in an Indy car since last year, he has to go out and do kind of the same thing to get back up to speed and just to show that he's not just jumping back in, even though it is like riding a bike, I would assume. So from 2:15 until 6 is all skate, as we call it. Everybody in the field practice is open from 2:15 until 6 o'clock. Then when you look at the rest of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, and then, of course, Fast Friday, noon until 6. Practice on each day, noon until 6. Qualifying on Saturday, qualifying on Sunday. One of the big storylines to watch, Alex Palou right now is coming in on as hot a streak as anybody you will find in racing in any year that you go look coming into the Indy 500. But a lot of things happen at Indy. Indy's different. I remember the first year that Weldon was with Ganassi and he was driving, in one of the Target cars, and literally Weldon, coming into it, it was like, this guy is going to sweep the entire month. He's going to win fastest practice every single day. He's going to be on the pole. He's going to win the race. And he was dominant in the race. He had a punctured tire, dropped him back, and, weird things happen. But one of the storylines that I think is going to be interesting to watch that we will pay close attention to over the next, week heading into qualifying and then in qualifying is whether or not, and in the past few years, there has definitely been an advantage in speed at the end of the race for the Chevrolet engines. But Honda, and I hope I'm not boring people with intimate details here or going too thick into the weeds, but you have two engine manufacturers in the Indy 500, Chevrolet and Honda. The last handful of years, Chevrolet has had better speed at the end of the race. When it comes down to a dual shootout, Chevrolet is able to kind of pull away from Honda. That's how Newgarden's won 2 in a row. Pato O'Ward's been right up there up front. He's in a Chevrolet, etc. They now have, Honda was very adamant that Honda wanted to see the implementation of some sort of a hybrid or battery-operated possibility within the cars. Especially, and that came about a handful of years ago when it looked like the automobile industry was, in fact, itself maybe going all the way towards battery-operated cars. And so the engine manufacturers were like, wait a minute, if this race is supposed to be the breeding ground or the showcase of our innovation of the automobile, then we need to have some semblance of, as well, a pack, if you will, in the car, a hybrid system which transfers energy, takes energy, stores it in there, and then gives the car extra boost. which is essentially what that is. It's the flux capacitor. To put it in layman terms, it's the flux capacitor. And occasionally, when you want to go faster, you can use that hybrid system to give yourself an extra boost, and then it generates and makes more boost for you when you're not running it. Because of that, the weight of that system, it has balanced out these cars a little bit, where now you wonder if it's advantage Honda and maybe the Hondas might be a little bit faster. We don't know that yet. We don't know yet. What we know is this. Typically, of the two engine manufacturers, one of them is faster and then the other conserves fuel, is better on fuel conservation. So if Eddie and I are racing, and are you a slow and steady wins the race, or are you a let's go, I'm right out of the box fast guy, Eddie?
I am definitely a slow and steady wins the race guy.
So if you were a fuel efficiency guy, what that means
I'd be
is
Scott Dixon.
What's that?
I'd be Scott Dixon.
He is the master at conserving fuel. That's right. Dario Franchitti was before him. But what that means is if we go out and it is the last, 20 laps of the race, you may be a disadvantage to me because of the fact that I've got the speed to pull away from you. But if at the end of the race it comes down where there are no caution flags and it is a dash to the finish, then I may be at a better advantage than you because I can pit earlier because I get 3 to 4 more laps on a fuel cell than, or you would, than I, because you are winning the fuel conservation race, and over the course of the race, it means less time in the pits. So while you might be an eighth of a mile an hour slower than I am, you're going to make up for that because you can stay out longer than I. You have to make one fewer pit stop, basically. So that's kind of the balance and the strategy of what you look for. We don't know yet where that disparity is, but it's one of the things we'll be looking for. A lot of people have asked me, and believe me, and I say this every year, every guy between the ages of 35 and 50 that or 55 that I have crossed paths with on the north side of Indianapolis in the last 20 years, they are all involved in some sort of a big, huge auction thing for drivers, and every one of them asks me who I think is going to win the race, and then every one of them goes in thinking they have, like, inside intel, and in reality, they're all getting the same intel because I tell everybody the exact same thing of who I think is going to win. But as of right now, before any of them have been out, if I had to say it in the field, I'm going to still go with Palou, Pato, McLaughlin, Newgarden, and I'll throw in Elio Castroneves as a dark horse because he's going to have good technology because his team is partnered now with Chip Ganassi Racing. But that's where I put it right now. Everything tomorrow, though, getting underway. Again, a little bit later because of the fact that you had the rookie orientation, but all the cars will be on the track by 2:15 tomorrow, weather permitting, of course. And then that will lead you into, on the evening, I have to think about my days because they all start to blur together at this point. So tomorrow, on track until 6, and then in the evening, it is game number 5, Pacers, Cavs. And there might be more storyline about the Cavs going into that than the Pacers. And we're going to break it down, all of it, next with our buddy Dustin
Dopira.
Thank you, from the Indianapolis Star. Do you know how this song relates to golf by chance?
No.
Well, first off, he mentions the Eagles, does he not? So you can get an eagle in golf, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you know who does this song?
That would be John Parr.
Thank you. It's my nickname in golf, just so you know.
Jake Parr?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. More like
Sure it's not Jake Bogey?
double bogey. That's on a good round. Joining us now, and I'm sure thrilled to be doing so based on that introduction, he is with the Indianapolis Star. He is the beat writer for the Indiana Pacers, Dustin
Dopira.
Joining us. Dustin, let's get right to this first and foremost. I realize Pacer side is what you are covering. Cleveland side. Donovan Mitchell, it appears as though this is now a game-to-game situation with his ankle. I had heard, I have no idea if anything came of it, that they were still examining whether or not Darius Garland had left the bench area during the DeAndre Hunter-Benedict Mathurin skirmish. Have you heard anything at all about availability or non-availability of any players now for Game 5?
Nothing beyond that. Haven't heard too much about the Garland thing. Obviously, Shams just reported, like 20 minutes ago on the Pat McAfee show that it'll be a game-time decision for Donovan, and you presume generally that Shams knows that of which he reports. So that obviously makes a huge difference. Donovan's been ridiculous this series, and if there's anybody who can just sort of will them to a win in Game 5, especially at home, it's Donovan. So that, even whether Garland it's important that they have Garland, but, obviously Donovan is the big one. If they don't have him, they really don't have a chance. If they do, they certainly have a shot to at least extend this thing to 6 games.
Now, what do you think in terms of Cleveland's mindset? Do you think there's any chance that because of the way things went last night and because of the fact that Indiana took their best shot presumably in Game 3, that Cleveland, and I don't know the dynamics, nor do I think you would, Dustin, but maybe in talking to your colleagues or, their personality dynamics and that kind of thing, any chance that they pack it in based on the way things went last night?
I think there is if they don't have Donovan. That I think is certainly a key thing as far as, just he's played well enough this series that he's one of those guys that, if he shows up at practice and he's ready to go, or if he shows up on game day and he's ready to go, then, your entire spirit lifts. And if you don't have him, and then you know that that's the guy who carried you just to be in the game in 1 and 2, then I think you start to feel like, man, this just is not our year. This isn't our series. This isn't going to work. I don't certainly have that much insight into their level of will. But obviously there's teams that hasn't been that far. It would be if Donovan's out, it would be a lot of young guys who would be asked to carry the torch. Obviously, Evan Mobley certainly hasn't been asked to be the guy in a playoff scenario before, as good as he is, and I think he's incredible, and he's going to be a phenomenal player in the long term. Garland and Allen are certainly, established players, but they haven't been asked to carry a team in that kind of circumstance. I think they would just have a hard time summoning what would be necessary. But if you get Mitchell and he's there and he's playing on a bum ankle, but he's still doing Donovan Mitchell things, then that can lift you. Wherever anybody's spirits are at this point, however much they're licking their wounds after last night, you show up and you see that guy, and especially if you know he's playing through pain, that's the sort of thing that inspires people. And if he gets going, he didn't look healthy in Game 1 or Game 2 either. It just looked like I know he was dealing with the calf, and there were points toward the end of each of those games where you're like, man, like he is hobbled at the end of every play, but he just blitzed through 2 guys and dunked on them. I don't know how he's doing this. So I think it just that question rides entirely on the shoulder. It rides entirely on the ankle of Donovan Mitchell.
What do you think Cleveland does differently, or rather, does Indiana have more, I guess, variable they can do offensively, because they cracked the code on the Cavs zone, it would appear, last night? What happens now in the chess match?
Right, exactly. And I think if you're the Cavs, you almost have to just go back to straight man-to-man. They just did not have an answer for that, and you put a lot of guys in tough scenarios. And I think I think it's just a fascinating, chess match. And I think one of the most interesting pieces to it is, I think there could have been a tendency, just considering narrative and whatnot, to think, oh, like Tyrese Halliburton has to get a ton of shots in this game. Like he's got to step up. This is his moment. He went from having this game winner in game 2, and then he has, he's doesn't do much at all in game 3, and he doesn't talk to the media. Like he has to have this moment where he steps up and is the guy. And like when you're kind of like, no, like actually what happened was you saw Pascal Siakam finally get some room to work in this series towards the end of game 3. Like he got a couple buckets there, and you're like, actually that's where this thing has to go. And you saw that basically they had mismatches along that back line of the 3-2 because you moved, Mobley and Allen, those guys up to the front. So there were post-up opportunities, and they took them. And I thought that was like really, really sharp. So I think what you almost have to do is flip it back and put Mobley back on Siakam, because that guy's just going to kill you all day if you don't have that body on him, and the same Toppin crushed him as well, because they basically kept getting Max Strus and being able to just punish him in a lot of those circumstances. So I think that's where you have to go with it, and you just have to trust your DPOI to be able to take Siakam out of it and operate as a help defender that's taking away rim opportunities, and that the 3-2 just has to go its own way. I mean, it got you a win in game 3. They probably should have pulled out of it earlier in game 4, but I just don't think you can use it again. It's been just busted up and destroyed. I mean, I don't know if you throw some standard 2-3 at them from time to time just to kind of slow things down, but I feel like man-to-man has to be your go-to idea, and you have to start with the idea of taking Siakam out of it and hope that you can slow down everybody else through man-to-man defense.
You mentioned, Dustin, that Evan Mobley is the defensive player of the year, and he certainly can disrupt things, just his size alone. Offensively, he is a gifted player. He has not necessarily gotten going offensively in this series. Is that partially because of the amount of work that he is expected to do on defense?
I'm sure it's got something to do with that. I mean, I'm trying to think of it seemed like he was in more scenarios to make plays in game 1. Obviously, game 2 he doesn't play with the injury. I mean, and obviously he still has the ankle. I mean, he was not feeling, could not have been feeling particularly healthy in game 3. So for him to be as good as he was on defense on game 3, I'm sure that had something to do with him only doing so much on offense. But he was effective in that game as well. And I think he had 18 and 13. I mean, I think he's also sort of getting used to his offensive repertoire. Like he's still, like learning that he can be a reliable shooter, like kind of figuring out where his spots are. Like you're still years away from knowing how good Evan Mobley is going to be as an offensive player, and he can be scary. I mean, he's like his long-term trajectory, I think, is really incredible. He's really impressed me in this series. But I think, figuring out where your spots are, where your opportunities are, being really aggressive in a playoff scenario is not something he's necessarily wired to do yet. And I think that's something, obviously going to take time to figure out. And so some of that has to be, the defensive, responsibility he has. Some of that has to be the ankle. Some of it has to be that they're just making sure there's bodies around him. He's not getting easy looks. And, I think, Turner and Siakam are doing a good job of making sure that if he gets the ball in the paint, he's having to work for anything he gets, especially since game 1. So I imagine it's a combination of all those factors.
After, and maybe this is something that fans don't care about. I don't know, actually, so I'll ask it.
Mm-hmm.
After the game Friday night, when the Pacers were, kind of embarrassed at home, and Halliburton was essentially a no-show, Halliburton was not made available to the media afterwards. Now, Dustin, I wanted to kind of shed light for fans as to the protocol here. And it's been a while, so let me tell you the protocol that I recall, and then you tell me how it differs today.
Right.
When I was doing television, for example, after the game, we would go into the post-game press conference room. Head coach would come in there, and then usually like a player or two. And then the locker room was open, and you went in the locker room, and every player was in there, and you talked to whoever you needed to, and every player was available. The protocol now with the NBA is what?
So that's not entirely wrong now. So basically, especially in the playoffs, they kind of basically require you to put players on the podium. Okay, you got to have somebody out there, whether it's 1, whether it's 2, whether it's 3. The Pacers usually have 2 guys every once in a while. They have 3, and last night they had 3, for instance. Obviously, they won the game, so they had more reason to do so. And also, locker room is only open. Locker room isn't open to everybody, and that's part of the reason why the podium is what it is. I don't know that obviously the COVID year was before I moved on to the NBA. But I think they set this might have been how it stood. Like, I mean, so I have what they call tier 1 access, and tier 1 access means you're allowed to go in the locker room. But, basically they'll bring these guys out, onto the podium, and you kind of have to make your decisions in terms of whether you want to talk to the guys on the podium or you want to talk to the guys in the locker room. The guys that are going to be on the podium are not going to talk in the locker room because they're not going to talk twice. So, basically you have to kind of pick and choose there. But, PR can make them not available. The other thing is, like, they don't have to. No one, they're not like required to stick around in any way, shape, or form. Basically, like last night, I wanted to talk to Obi Toppin because he had a great game, and Obi Toppin usually is one of the first guys out of the locker room. And he didn't stay, and he was apparently gone before PR got there to be like, "Hey, Obi, you probably are going to want to stay because people want to talk to you. You had 20 tonight." And especially guys like that are role players that don't talk all the time. Sometimes just don't think about it, from time to time. And so on at home, the Pacers always have guys at the podium, whether it's the playoffs or not. On the road, they don't. On the road, we usually, in playoffs, they do have people at the podium. In regular, road games, it's just Rick, and then I run in there, and usually I'm able to get, pretty much anybody I want to talk to in that case, because usually they haven't left yet, they have a bus to take, all that kind of thing. So as far as this is concerned, to bring it back to this point, Tyrese explained it a little bit more last night. I asked him about it when he made himself available on Saturday for their kind of like post-workout session thing, and then Sunday, and he's basically he was chippy about it. You could tell he wasn't too pleased about the fact that we had written about it, but it was a thing before I put a word on paper. And he basically told, James Boyd asked him about it, said, "Did you regret this?" He's like, "Yeah, well, basically," he's like, "Look, like I came in, I talked," he said, "I think our PR staff does a great job." He's like, "I talked to Mike Preston, who's the main PR guy, and I said, I gave him the indication I wasn't really in the mood to talk." And he said, "Well, if you don't want to talk, then, I don't need you." And he just, or that I don't want you to. And basically then he just left. And so, they obviously, the PR staff connects with them, finds out what they want to do, who wants to do the podium, that kind of thing. So they do have conversations with that. And I imagine when you lose a game that you're not happy about, you're not thrilled about the concept of talking to people. But Halliburton, and this has to be said, and I understand that, again, I don't know how much everybody cares, but and I know part of the reason why he's annoyed about this is he does make himself available all the time, and I benefit from that.
He
more
just
than
got
anybody.
named, didn't he? Just get like an
Second
award
team
for
All-Interview.
Second
team All-Interview by the Professional Basketball Writers Association. I mean, I really got to stress on this. He's incredible as far as being good, good to the media, not just good, but helpful. I mean, his quotes are phenomenal, both because of their level of insight, honesty, sincerity. He's really good at talking about his teammates and explaining what makes them essential to the team. For me as a beat writer, he's been a godsend. But obviously, when the narrative comes down to it, when you win a game big like he won it, make a big show about winning the game, and then lose and you don't talk to the media, the narrative there is obvious, and basically, and a superstar is always going to be put under a microscope there, and immediately everybody's going to say, well, he's ducking the media, and this is lame, and this is weak, and this is whatever. And that's obviously not my, take exactly, and that's not me driving that, that narrative, but because from my perspective, he's been great. I could not ask for anything more. Him not doing it, it's not a complaint for me. I don't have any problem writing without him, and because he makes a lot of my stories work a lot of nights. But he's still in that position, and he's as media savvy as anybody I've ever met. So he had to know this is how it was going to go down, and so makes for a weird scenario. But yeah, I mean, basically he said I probably should have overruled Mike, and I could, he basically acknowledged I could have if I really wanted to talk, I could have, and he just acknowledged that he probably should have done that.
What player on the Pacers roster in this series has yet to have a game where he has played at his best ability?
I mean, I guess Pascal. I mean, he had a good night last night, but there's more there. And obviously he only played a half, so you only kind of saw pieces of it. I mean, but he was 9 of 10. He was pretty sensational in that game. So you've only seen a half of that. Aaron's been pretty good. He can do, you can get. Well, actually, no, he was phenomenal in game 1. That's not true. He was terrific in that game. Obi was really good. I mean, I feel like everybody's had a really good game. That you would expect. I mean, TJ's been pretty solid. Like he's produced enough that you could say that, like, I mean, all of them can dial it up a notch. Tyrese can certainly dial it up a notch. He hasn't had a 25 to 30 point outburst, and so that's still possible. I think you could still see the best of Tyrese Halliburton. I think everybody's been pretty good. Nobody's had this is the best you can imagine them doing game, except for maybe Nembhard in game one where he was just lights out from three. But I think everybody has another gear that they could go up a notch. And so, it's still possible for any one of them to have one more, great game in this series to close it out.
Dustin, when you look at what I think was Indiana's very clear offensive initiative in this bounce back, and I could see it. I could see Lloyd Pierce every time that they would take the ball in out of bounds, he's standing there using the arm motion of like, let's go, right? They
right.
clearly wanted to play at pace that wore down Cleveland, but more so just didn't allow Cleveland to set up that defense that had been so tricky for them. And then I think cracking that, and I talked about, some of their entry passes and, where they play Siakam, but I think a big part of cracking that zone was, in fact, getting back to the pace of ball movement and getting after loose balls like they had not seen before, or like Cleveland had not seen out of them before. So my question is this. Is there risk if Indiana's got to do it this way against Cleveland for 3 more games, theoretically, right? Is there risk if they survive it and that wearing them down and then they become last year's Eastern Conference final New York Knicks, or Eastern Conference semifinal New York Knicks, that just wore down because they had overextended themselves?
I mean, the obvious difference is that Rick Carlisle plays 11 guys and Tom Thibodeau plays 6 if he absolutely has to. Like, if maybe goes to 7 if you just demand it from him. I mean, that's where this comes in. And as much as, I know if the biggest frustration, I think, prior to game 2, and I feel like I've seen less of it because of that since then, the frustration that Pacers fans have with Rick is, having too big of rotations and playing Ben Shepherd a bunch of minutes and everything like that. And, what you really see it shine through in those moments when they've been doing this now for months, like 3 more games isn't going to wear them down. 3 more games of pushing the pace, 3 more games of pressuring isn't going to be what wears them out, because they are limiting everybody's minutes. It's obviously helpful that you crush them in game 4, and barely anybody has to play past the midway point of the third quarter yesterday, and James Johnson is your point guard for most of the fourth. So
hey, he's got some moves, man. James Johnson, he put some handles down, right?
Oh, he does. James Johnson can play point guard now, and that step back, he had a step back jumper from about 18 feet that was pure. So James can still play. James is, I would say, James is in the best shape I've seen him. Since they've had him. He played fewer minutes this year, but I think he is in the best shape I've seen him in. That if he had to play minutes, he could, and he could still, if need be, obviously beat up anybody And I think, but bottom line, like they have done a good job all year of preserving energy, but through the use of their rotations, but also pushing themselves to make sure they are, that they are conditioned, but they're not overworked. I think they've hit that balance pretty well. I asked Miles about it. He's like, we're used to pressing, and so we can do this, and we can do this all day, and we're going to be the less tired team. And the thing is it goes for everybody. The point of it, it's not just Andrew Nembhard guarding 94 feet. It's if Pascal Siakam's guy brings the ball up just so it's, they're not dealing with Nembhard. Pascal Siakam can defend you for 94, and Tyrese can, he can at least jam you. Tyrese obviously isn't the best, on-ball wall-up guy there is, but he can get in your face if he has to. If you're the guy that, if his guy is bringing the ball up, Aaron Nesmith certainly can. And Miles Turner has taken on a handful of 5 guys that were willing to, try to do it. He had a steal on Wembanyama in that San Antonio game because he was defending 94. So these guys are used to it, and it's not going to wear them down. Certainly whether they get Boston or the Knicks, there's going to be their own challenges, but they're not going to lose the Eastern Conference Finals because they're tired. That's not going to be the reason. They're going to have the edge wherever they go as far as conditioning is concerned.
Who would you say, okay, Dustin, we're going to do a little exercise here. Eddie, feel free to chime in on this. The most popular Pacer player on the roster is Halliburton, correct? We
I'd
agree.
say so.
We all agree on that? Okay.
Yes, unanimous.
Second most popular, Siakam?
Among the Pacers fan base?
Yes.
I think it's because,
McConnell?
yeah,
Turner?
it's up there. I mean,
Ooh,
I think
Turner?
McConnell, Turner. I mean, I honestly, I would say Siakam is the second most respected. Where like nobody has a bad thing to say about him. Like Turner frustrates people from time to time when he doesn't rebound as well as they'd hoped. But they also, like he also has the veteran, edge in that basically. And I think obviously every time he talks about how much he loves playing for the Pacers, in the Players Tribune article, obviously adds
I forgot
to that.
about Turner. Yeah, that's
You have to put him in there for this long term. People that love Miles Turner are right.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So if we went Halliburton 1 and then 2, we did combo of McConnell Turner. Okay, like that's number 2.
Yeah.
Now, which is better? Which is more popular as the number 3? Would it be Siakam or would it be combo Nembhard Nesmith?
God, that's a coin flip for me. I think because obviously they respect just how good Siakam is, but like if you're a Pacers fan and you've been, if you've been down with this team throughout
yeah, he's not homegrown, right?
Run,
you know what I mean? Yeah.
Right, exactly. And like even Nesmith is acquired from a trade, but they still feel.
But
that
he
way
developed before our very eyes. So did Halliburton.
Right, exactly. And you don't have a lot of bad things to say about either one of them. They're just good, good quiet soldiers who have done everything you've asked them to do just by grinding it for 3 years. So,
because James Johnson gets the loudest ovation of anybody, right?
Yeah.
Obi Toppin's.
He's beloved, too.
Okay, how about this? Which is higher, the combo Nesmith Nembhard or Obi Toppin?
The combo Nembhard and Nesmith, but they love Obi. Like you have to love Obi, but you also see like Obi has shortcomings in ways that. Like,
yeah, but Obi Toppin, he's over there fist bumping fans, and you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I don't think like this is there is not a lot of separation here, but like Aaron and Andrew are beloved if you're looking at like contribution. If you're the type of guy who type of person who likes the good soldier type, you love Aaron and Andrew. If you like the guy with the personality, and Obi's just hilarious. He is. Like you see, just anything you see as far as personality and interpersonal connection, like Obi's just hysterical and he's great. And like again, like he wasn't at media yesterday, but I know that's not like he doesn't like us or something like that. Like Obi just didn't think about it. Like,
okay,
it just didn't dawn on him.
Here, last one for you, and I waited till the end for this because last night was awesome. The next 2 weeks is going to be awesome. It's May, it's Indy, all of it, right? I love all of it.
Right.
But having nothing to do, it's very dangerous to take just one circumstance and make that speak for in totality, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But as I watched last night, I couldn't help but think to myself, we now, if there was anybody that didn't know this before, we now have concrete, cemented evidence that Miles Turner is kind of the heart of this team. And the way that he plays, the way that he leads, and the way that they want to play going through him in many, many ways.
Yeah.
He is a free agent. He just wrote that column. He's no fool. He wrote that column knowing that people are going to read that, and the Pacers are like, we just got checkmated. We have to have this guy here. Have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That means that you have to make sure that you are not extending yourself financially in other areas and committing beyond this year. Mm-hmm. And there are some players that, as a result of that, may not get a lucrative second contract because there is money that has to go elsewhere. Are we now at a point where we can look at, having nothing to do against him personally or even as a player, is it possible that because they're going to have to make a move of some sort, that the most expendable player on their roster that would get value back is Benedict Mathurin?
Knew that's where you're going with that one. I saw that miles away. No, it is. It's possible. I don't want to say that for sure because, I would say first off, like this management team has surprised me before. There's definitely been times where I think, well, this seems to be the path where this is going down, and they have managed to wriggle themselves out of it. And I think on paper that certainly looks to be a good possibility. I kind of have to redo the math to see, all right, like how much more cap space is going to be there because the cap is going to go up 10%. what are they going to actually have to pay for Turner, as far as like what would they think that they would, could lose to him on the open market. There are not too many teams that have cap space in the first place that would be able to go to pursue him. Obviously, you could do, people could pursue a sign and trade, but it's not like, the Lakers or somebody like that can just throw gobs of money at him, because this isn't baseball. You have to work within the framework of what's there, and basically the teams that have the opportunity to throw a big contract at him are the teams that have cap space, and the teams that have cap space are generally young and not very good. So, like there's a whole bunch of angles that might lead to the market not being as lucrative for Turner as it might be, and they might be able to get away with it for not a whole lot more than they're paying for him now. And so that might give you a little bit more space to keep this thing around. But, you do have to think about long term and like how like at what point are you looking at, getting into aprons? And when you start getting into aprons, you obviously lose an amount of flexibility for what future moves you want to make. I mean, and, I get the like I obviously don't know Herb Simon very well or really at all. And, like I know he's not a guy who likes to go into the tax. I mean, I would think if this team makes another Eastern Conference Finals at least, then he will have reason to go into it in this case. But then you get into aprons, and once you get into aprons, you have to be sure that you have the team that you need. And basically, you've got to feel like you have what it takes to get, if you don't win a championship this year, you have to look at it as, okay, well, what are the pieces that you need to make, and you need to maintain the flexibility to go get them. And so if you don't think Benedict Mathurin is one of those pieces, then you have to look into it at the very least, because certainly I imagine that they're going to make an offer of an extension, and it's just a question of what that offer is going to be. I mean, it can't possibly be a max contract. And so it's like, okay, well, what is it going to be? How high are they willing to go? Like you're paying Aaron Nesmith $11 million a year. Can you pay more than that, or do you have to pay less than that? Do you have to offer
biggest
less
bargain in the NBA, Aaron Nesmith at $11 million a year, by the way.
One of them, absolutely. They lock that up good, and Andrew Nemhard is a pretty good deal at $18 million. Because that contract's not going to kick in until this year. I mean, right now you're paying him like 2.2. So that's another thing that adds to it, is that contract kicks in next year. You just start to pay, some of those guys. I mean, TJ McConnell, I can't remember if his deal kicked in this year, if it kicks in next year, but I mean, he's obviously on an extension. You're paying Obi a pretty decent amount of money if, presuming you keep him around. So you're certainly going to have to look into, what is this, but also, the moves that you make, obviously you have to consider what you're going to be paying those people. And so, obviously at this point you're paying Mathurin somewhere around the 10 million range maybe for next year. And so, that factors into it that, you might be able to get somebody that's productive, that doesn't cost you a whole lot, and that you can kind of lock in at that rate. So yeah, I mean, yes, that is the moving piece that you have to look at if you're considering how the Pacers are going to roster build going forward after this.
It is time for the Indy 500 in May when you start hearing the word apron. And that actually didn't even relate to the track and people asking me when they're going to bring back the apron in the turns and get more speed, et cetera, et cetera. But that is an incredibly esoteric Indianapolis late 80s, early 90s reference. All right, Dustin, appreciate the time. We'll talk to you soon, all right?
Anytime, Jake. Thanks for having me as always.
From the Indianapolis Star, that is Dustin
Dopira.
That is correct. Yeah, people ask me all the time, when are they going to bring back the apron? When are they going to bring back the apron at the Speedway? I don't know that they will, but fun times for certain. We have big news for Eddie Garrison that I'll tell you next. So the NBA will be on NBC coming up, I believe, next season, right?
Yes.
And they have a new, is it studio analyst that's going to help out a little bit from time to time?
Uh-huh.
He's just going to sit and look at a tablet and laugh and talk about how he hates everybody. And here's an unpopular opinion for all of you. And then I'll get you to Eddie's big news in a second. Unpopular opinion here, but I don't know that Michael Jordan, I mean, listen, I get it. I mean, it's Michael Jordan, right? I totally get it. But Michael Jordan is fascinating to me because while everyone loves Michael Jordan, the player, the vast majority of people don't like him, the person. I think Jordan is part of his brand, part of his staple, part of what defines him is the crusty surliness about him. And the fact that he just doesn't seem like an open person, and that's what made him such a great basketball player, is that he would create in his mind rivalries and trash talk and et cetera, and get bothered by stuff. But I don't know many people that are like, he's obviously a great player. And no one disputes their love for him as a player. People will watch Jordan highlights all day long. But it's interesting because he's not an overwhelmingly popular personality. You, of course, are going to watch him because it's, Tom Brady's a good example of this. Now, Tom Brady people disliked because Jordan was like cool and sleek and, everything about him was awesome. Michael Jordan as a basketball player was like watching an F-16. No, everybody loves it, right? Tom Brady as a football player was like, a huge 757. I mean, you're like, yeah, okay, it's impressive, but whatever. Like, it's methodical. Whereas Jordan was just like a fighter jet. Like, you had to watch it. It was must-see television. But Brady on television as an analyst, people are like, this guy's boring. Get him off my screen. I don't like him. And I am curious to see how Jordan will be because what drove Jordan as a player was the fact that he created vendetta about everyone being inferior to him or trying to hold him back from being superior. I say that as a positive about him. It's an incredible trait, and he did it better than anybody in the history of the game. The LeBradford Smith story is a prime example where they were getting ready to play, the Washington Wizards. And or the Washington Bullets when he was a Bull, and he's going on and on about LeBradford Smith. LeBradford Smith talked trash about me, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to show this kid, and he goes out and drops 35 in the first half, and then afterwards, years later, he goes, yeah, no, I completely made that story up. That wasn't even true. I never even talked to LeBradford Smith. This poor guy's caught in the crosshairs. But I'm curious what that means for him as a studio analyst or, because it's interesting if you ask, there are some athletes that television inflates their greatness as a player because people assume they were a great player because they were such a beloved television personality. Bob Uecker is a numero uno. To a great extent, Tim McCarver probably is in that mix. I think, and this guy was a great player. Okay, Kenny Smith is a good example. Kenny Smith was a really good player. Good player. He was Mark Jackson. He was a solid player. But Kenny Smith as a personality, people love him. And so now he probably gets even more love in terms of his playing career. But then there are athletes that their broadcast attempt.
Wait, hold on. You said Kenny Smith, right?
Clever Liz.
Took us that long today, right? Isaiah Thomas and Magic Johnson both, as broadcasters, terrible. Endearing personalities that people liked, Magic Johnson notably. I mean, you can't not like Magic Johnson as a guy, but on television, brutal. The other big news, do we have the breaking news sounder by chance, Eddie? Eddie, you are on your way to the Indy 500.
Let's go.
Let's go. On your way to the Indy 500.
I was going regardless. I just didn't know if I was attending with a ticket or general admission or
friend
whatever
Uncle
the case.
Jake here has secured for you the same 2 seats where you sat a year ago, and you said that you were able to see the last pass of the race, correct?
Yeah.
There's no, the funny thing about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, there's no bad seat. In fact, what I mean by that
Well, except
is,
the one behind me.
That's right. What did you see the whole time? Some guy's 9 3/4 melon. Eddie is indeed, there's no doubt about it. You are, without question, the walking human eclipse. But everywhere that I've ever sat at the race, and the first race that I ever went to, we sat in the, as I say, paddock. I believe some say paddock. But I sat in the paddock as a kid. I loved it because we could see the pits and I could watch the activity, and I didn't really know everything about the race that was going on. Then my dad and I, for years, sat in turn number 2. I sat with my buddy Chris Fargus's parents one year in turn number 1. I sat with the fabulous guys from Hardwick's Pipe and Tobacco, Tony Moran and Larry Langley, like brothers to me, in the short chute on the north end between 3 and 4 one year. I sat in Grandstand J one year, which is coming off of turn number 4. So I've sat like in all corners, and each and every one of them, I thought to myself, this is the best place right here. No, this is the best place. Last year was cool, but this is better. And then now I'm in 3, and I've also called it from 2. So I've seen it from all angles. And the one beautiful thing about the Speedway is the fact that you can see it from everywhere, right? We have tickets to give away, do we not?
We do, for Carburation Day.
For Carb Day tickets to give away. How many do we have?
A pair. We will have a pair to give away every day this week.
Are we doing it trivia style? Or are we doing it best pacer take style? What way? Eddie, why don't you inside that large Jupiter-sized cranium of yours? You can tell that it's May because I'm starting to get tongue-tied. Figure out a way that we're giving away those tickets, and we'll do them before the end of the show. And again, a reminder, Chap coming up about 18 minutes from now. I'm a little curious here, Eddie.
You've never heard this song?
During the break, I kept hearing this song, and I said, no, what are you doing? You said, oh, I'm queuing up to the chorus. And then you started singing, and I've never heard your singing voice before.
I was not singing,
you were doing like a karaoke of the Pink Pony Club, and I want to know what I'm missing out on here. Are we beginning to see a new side of you?
No, I was not singing.
Is there something? Did you, as a kid, did you have a pink pony? Did you have a stuffed animal when you were a kid?
No, this is just one of the top songs right now on the Billboard Top 100, Jake. It's number 5.
You never had a stuffed animal of any sort?
You're trying to make this show more young and hip, and that's what I'm doing. Playing the young hits.
I understand, but I'm curious.
Playing the hits here.
If Pink Pony Club just resonates with you.
No, not really. No. It's a catchy song.
Wait, I don't believe I've ever asked you, who is your favorite musical artist?
Ooh, that's a good question.
If I gave you, for example, if instead of Indy 500 tickets, I got a bead, got a line, got a connection to get you concert tickets, what concert would you want it to be?
It would have to be Bon Jovi.
Seriously?
Mm-hmm.
His voice is shot now, though, right?
Yeah, and you're to blame, yeah.
But very well done. Shot through the voice and you're to blame, is that right?
Shot to the heart and you're to blame.
No, I know, but I'm saying in this case.
Yeah.
John Bon Jovi, though, from everything that I've ever understood, heard, whatever, super cool guy. Seems like a super cool guy, right?
That's what I've heard as well, yeah.
Giannis, by the way, is open to exploring the best fits outside of Milwaukee. Have the Milwaukee Bucks did the window just close for them? Did the Pacers close the Milwaukee Bucks window?
I think Milwaukee closed Milwaukee's window.
Fair.
Back when they traded Drew Holiday and got Damian Lillard. I don't understand why they felt like they needed to make that move.
Who did they trade to get Kyle Kuzma? Oh, that was Eric Middleton, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or not, I mean, Chris Middleton, excuse me.
Chris Middleton. I know what you meant.
Yeah, Middleton was, I think that there are certain players that have a greater value to their team than people, like, honestly, James Johnson, you notice that every single time the Pacers would have to make room on something and would waive him, they would immediately re-sign him as soon as they could.
Yep.
And it's not because they want a guy that is there just to, like, intimidate people in case of a fight. The Pacers have the best, and I'm going to say this out of total respect and sincerity. I'm not trying to be funny at all here. The Pacers have a huge thing whenever a skirmish breaks out, and I'll give her credit for being for being fearless. But, and I hope I'm saying her last name correctly. I've heard.
Want me to say it for you?
Yes, Jenny Busick.
Busick.
Thank you. See, I've heard several variations, but Jenny Busick, who is their fantastic assistant coach, she herself, a former player. She played in Australia. And is one of their defensive mind coaches, and really, it's interesting watching on the sidelines the way that she not only calls out commands, but the way that players very clearly fall in line to listen to and respect her. But when there is a skirmish that breaks out, she runs out and she is in the middle of it instantly. And part of that is just, I think, as a player, you automatically, maternal's the wrong word, but there is a command, there's a respect commanded that immediately is adhered to by the players, both for the Pacers and the other team. The second being, if you are a player of the opposition and coaches come out, whatever, and you get some chest bumping here and there or a push or a shove here or there, that is absolutely, can you imagine? I mean, that's not even in the thought of possibility when she comes out there that you would do that to her. So it's kind of an immediate, peacekeeper, if you will. But in terms of, it's interesting to me because with Giannis, now kind of dropping the nugget of, I'm open to seeing what can be done, that kind of thing. Very clearly, the seeds are being planted for him moving on from Milwaukee. And yes, he won a championship there, but one of the things I think that people most found to be favorable about Giannis is that he was this mega superstar type player that seemed content with staying in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I can't imagine what it would be like to be a Bucks fan and have a guy of that level and that status bring you a championship. And at the time, you probably thought to yourself, this is going to be a dynasty. It's going to be a dynasty. And you are right. The Drew Holiday trade did not help.
But
Not
to answer
smart.
your question to start the segment, Jake, Van Halen is my favorite. No, it's not an artist, but group. And I chose Bon Jovi over Van Halen because obviously not all members of Van Halen are still
Including
with
your
us.
namesake?
Yep.
What about Kiss? You look like a Kiss guy. You like Kiss?
Yeah, I don't mind them.
Which member of Kiss would you want to be? Would that be
Gene Simmons, duh.
Wow. If you had to wear the makeup, would you wear the Gene Simmons makeup? Would you spit the blood?
If I had to as part of the bit, absolutely. I'm a team player.
Gene Simmons, by the way, was involved in IndyCar for a bit, and I walked up to Gene Simmons and said, "You know, I mean, it wasn't like I went running up to him, but we were in a media center, and we're standing there, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm standing with Gene Simmons, and we're standing next to one another for." I can't remember it was a rain delay or something.
They had the boots on and makeup and everything.
He didn't have the makeup on, but he wore jeans and the whole deal. And I said, and I guess in hindsight, I can understand why A, he probably has heard this 50,000 times, and B, how it probably made him feel old. But I said, it's funny. I've got to confess to you. All I wanted when I was like 8 years old was to be able for my mom to let me dress up as you for Halloween. And he looked at me and he said, you and every other little on planet Earth.
I'd like to know what those two sound effects
Well,
were.
it's interesting because I said mother. I said, I think I said, but my mother wouldn't allow it. So one of those words was used in his two beeps. So I could have just beeped one of the two words, but you can do the math from there. You're a smart fellow, Eddie. You can figure that out.
Thank
right?
you. That's a compliment. I'm adding that to my resume as a testimonial.
Carb Day tickets, bottom of the hour. Mike Chappell, top of the hour, which means next. One, by the way, alteration to the IMS schedule for tomorrow that I had mentioned. They have adjusted it now for 12 until 2 tomorrow is an all-skate session, meaning all cars will be on track tomorrow from 12 until 2.
Now, do they put skates on the cars, Jake?
They do, and that's where it gets really interesting. Right?
Really?
Mm-hmm. From 2 until 4 is a special refresher session for Tony Kanaan. Now, Kanaan, keep in mind, has to undergo the refresher session because if something happens where Kyle Larson is not able to run the Indy 500, Kanaan would be his replacement. And then another all-skate, as we call it, from 4 until 6 o'clock. 4 until 6 o'clock. Pacers are up 3-1 on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Colts actually had some activity last week as well.
Wait. They're up on who is that, Jake?
Cleveland
Cavaliers.
Thank you. Yeah, that's right. 3-1. Joining us now on the program, of course, you see his work with CBS 4 and WXA and Fox 59. We'll get to Colts in a second, but Chap, I'm going to begin with this. In your time, not only living in Indianapolis, but having grown up here, being a Beach Grove guy, and before, obviously you were in Anderson covering the Colts, and then shifted over to full time for the Star. Did you ever get the proverbial assignment of, hey, we need you to help out and do sidebar stuff, as we call it in the business, but did you cover the Indy 500 over the course of the years?
Oh yeah, when I was just an idiot with Robin Miller and his staff early in when I got to the Star in '84. Oh, we everybody, it was all hands on deck for the race, which for 10, 15 years, maybe more. You get out there at 6 in the morning and you're out there until 8 at night. And oh yeah, because that's back when we would do 15 stories for the print edition. I'd get the guy that finished 15th. And the problem I had with the race, I loved it back then because I didn't know any better, and race day was kind of cool. But I just didn't know the background. What I've come to learn at the track is left turns are good, right turns are bad. Not road courses, but with the oval. So I was not a liability, but we always went to Robin. Well, what about this? What's our way about this? But oh yeah, it was back then. It was everybody who was on the staff was at the track, and
it was,
we had that little room out there, and Robin had the Long's Donuts and all that. So it was really an experience, but I grew tired of it after about 15 years because it's just
it's a grind, man. And then back then it was the whole month, yeah.
Well, and again, if you don't know what you're doing, you just feel like you're a liability. Like when I'm the main guy covering the Colts for the Star, you had guys wanting to come for the extra player for the playoffs or whatever, and they're asking you things. Well, they're taking away your time from what you do, which you do because you're trying to help guys. Robin was a master. John Banch always used to give everybody the assignments, but Robin was the axle. He's the one that everything went around. And you've been around Robin. You know what a day's like with Robin leading up to it. And then when the race gets going, nobody had a stronger hand on what went on at the track than Robin Miller from a media perspective. And I miss that part of it.
Oh, I mean, never will, right? And you know what's interesting about Robin, Chap, and I've said this before, but I think his detractors didn't realize this. Robin Miller is the one guy that at 3:30 in the morning could probably get a hold of and call about any sport dignitary in Indianapolis, and not only would they answer the phone, they wouldn't even think it was weird. You know what I mean?
But that's what, and I don't know that he consciously, looked to have the deep Rolodex. It's just the way he was.
Yeah, he was. I mean, you met the guy twice. You were his best friend. It was incredible.
His loyalty was unbelievable. And on the other side, if you soured him for some reason, for whatever reason, then you were like Fredo to Michael Corleone. You were dead to him.
Now, I will say this. I don't want to I'm not going to give any specific examples, but there were famous battles he would get into publicly, war of words or people with which he was hypercritical. And then later I would find out that those people actually were his source for a ton of stuff.
Didn't surprise me.
And he was writing that to keep people at bay over the fact that that's the last person you ever would have guessed was the one that was giving him everything.
And that just shows you the weird relationship he could have with people. But all the relationships in the media with whoever you're covering on it's trust. It's just, do they trust you? They don't like you, although it helps to be liked as well. But do they trust you? Do they trust that what they tell you will be presented in the right way without burning them? I know we all hate unnamed sources, but I'm one of those that I know when I use an unnamed source, I trust the guy implicitly. There were times at the Star with the sports editor that I'd say, I've got this. We need to go with this. Well, who's your source? Well, I really can't tell you. Well, we need 2 or 3 sources. I said, no. The guy I've got is the source. He knows. It's funny. It's like on Twitter today, Schefter put out there a statement from Trey Hendrickson about what's not going on with negotiations. That's a source that you trust. Now, he mentioned his name, or Hendrickson put it out there himself. But when you know you've got A.J. Foyt or Tony George, who Robin went to war with. I mean, let's not forget that. But with the Unsers and Andretti and all these guys, sometimes they didn't like Robin. I mean, A.J. Foyt, there were times that they were at war. But somehow they got to be fast friends. It's unbelievable how Robin could do that. And that's what made him so good at what he did, is when he wrote something, it was critical, but boy, you just trusted what he had was spot on.
Mike Chappell, our guest, CBS 4, WXIN, Fox 59. All right, Chappell, let's get to the Colts real quick. Things that you learned, I guess, last week, or anybody that jumped out at you. And for those that were unfamiliar, take me through what their scheduling was and what took place for them at the end of last week.
Well, they had rookie minicamp on Friday, Saturday, when all the rookies undrafted, 8 draft picks, and I think it was 15 undrafted guys and like 35 or 40 tryout guys, because you need bodies to practice. They're just out there. They're doing semi full speed drills, but it's sort of, you kind of get a gauge on who you drafted and who these guys are, because they've done homework on these guys for a year or 2 years on some of these guys. It just reaffirms, I guess, what you saw when you evaluated them. The big thing is it brings the rookies in who a good portion of these rookies will be a part of your team. It gets them familiar with the facility, with the practice fields, with where's the cafeteria, where's the locker room, where's the weight room. So when they come back either late this week or next week with the vets, they're not just totally overwhelmed. But what you notice, I mean, Riley Leonard throws a good football. Tyler Warren catches everything, and he just looks like what you expected. But beyond that, it was our first chance to really talk to these guys face to face. When we got them on Zoom after the draft, but this is where you get a chance to really meet with them and kind of gauge their personality. So for us, that was important. Riley Leonard, he's going to be fun to work with. He's just a very personable, very outgoing, and most of these guys you find that out about. And now you're going to have to figure out, can they really help the team? And I wrote something yesterday and pushed it back out today. The kicker from Temple, Maddox Triejo, he's going to get a chance to win the kicking job. I mean, it's Spencer Schrader's job to lose after letting go of Matt Gay, but Spencer Schrader has played one season and kicked 5 field goals in the regular season, so he's not a lock. So that's what you look for. beyond that, there's not a lot. I mean, there really isn't. But it was the next step, and then starting next week, I think we start having OTAs when they're on the field, and we watch them practice. If not next week, then the week after. So that's when it really ramps up over the next month. And then after the middle of June, they're done until they report to training camp in Grand Park in late July.
Chap, when you look at the undrafted free agents, there have been significant contributions made to the Colts roster over the years. I mean, Gary Brackett would be the first one that jumps out, but
Dominic Rhodes. So
they had at one point, if I'm not mistaken, the longest streak of opening day rosters with an undrafted free agent on it, that kind of thing. Do you feel like with other teams that is the norm, that just as good as the prospecting for the draft is, that there is still that non-scientific nature to it that allows for a guy to slip through the cracks? Or is Indianapolis the anomaly?
No, I think every team has that. The Colts just had that streak. It was like 22 years in a row, whatever it was, and now it's 24 the last 26 or whatever. Dalton Tucker made it last year, the guard. So, no, every team does. Again, if you can play, they're going to keep you. Now, if you're a top 3 draft pick, I'm talking 3 rounds, then you're going to get an extra look. You just are. Certainly the top 3 rounds, 4 rounds maybe. But after that, if an undrafted guy is out playing your 7th round pick, you keep the guy that has shown you he can play. It's counterproductive to say you're going to have open competition and this, that, and the other. Whoever merits being kept will be kept. Again, sometimes you're going to keep a top draft pick because of the investment and all of this. But by and large, if you can play, but that's why a lot of these guys, it's not a lot of people who do make it, because they've done such extensive work, scouts and GMs and sometimes the head coaches and position coaches gets involved. They know these guys, and there are very few. I asked Chris Ballard about, have you ever come out of a mini rookie camp and said, man, this guy can't play? We really missed on him. And he mentioned one player back with the Bears. But generally that's not the case, because, man, you just have done your work. The scouts know these guys. So there's not as many. And then if you've got a decent roster to begin with, you don't have a ton of openings. But I just sort of expect one guy every year to make it, whether it's going to be the kicker, whether it's going to be a linebacker, maybe an offensive lineman. I don't know, because those are the areas that they're sort of in safety. But if your roster's in good shape and you draft well, it's really hard for the undrafted guy to make it, and it's really hard for a tryout guy. We talked to Ed Dodds, and he mentioned that the tryout guys are sort of guys you have on your board over the summer and early part of the season, where if injuries hit a position, you know these guys, and you can go back. Well, we had this guy in minicamp as a tryout. He looked pretty good. So it's just hard for an undrafted guy to make it, because you've done your work building your roster and hitting on your draft picks. But, boy, there's always a guy, it seems like, and those are guys you really pull for. Gary Brackett, I mean, Dominic Rhodes, Terrence Wilkins, they've had those guys. And in the Colts case, they've been guys who were doggone good. I mean, Dominic Rhodes could have been MVP of the Super Bowl. He really could have.
Should have
been.
Gary
Brackett,
I would say should have been.
Should have. You're right. And Brackett was he ended up being the walk-on from Rutgers, and he was a defensive mainstay, a captain, and a leading tackler. And so if you can play, they're going to keep you, because this is all about keeping the best players on your roster to make your roster stronger, top to bottom. And the undrafted guys will be the bottom of the roster, generally the 50, 51 to 53. And a lot of these guys, undrafted guys, will be around for the practice squad.
Of the guys, Chap, of the guys in this franchise that have left the biggest mark, okay? I mean, I'm talking Ring of Honor guys or Super Bowl era great players, all the way up through, Andrew Luck, etc. Of those that were drafted by the franchise, give me the one that, looking back at it, was the slowest start. In other words, when you first watched them in their rookie camp, or you first watched them that first year, you just went to yourself, I'm just not sure about this guy. And then it came together and you went, yeah, okay.
Boy, good question. Well, one guy that jumps to my mind, and I don't mean to diss him, was Reggie. Reggie Wayne, Ring of Honor, and all this stuff. He had a really slow start, but that was more. He had an injury. I think it was a high ankle sprain. His rookie season, and start off slow. He really didn't step in until, was it late second year or third year? And then once he did, was like, holy smoke, this guy's pretty good. He jumps out, but that was more injury related. Boy, as far as Robert Mathis, but he was a late pick that, special teams, and then all of a sudden he and Freeney are great. Other than that, no one else really jumps out as, is this guy going to make it? Because other guys that have sort of been established, sort of were established from the start. Edgerrin, Peyton, Freeney, Tarek Glenn, those guys. I can't think of anybody.
It seems like Freeney got off to kind of a slow start, didn't he?
Well, yeah, because the team, they didn't play him a lot. He didn't start till like mid-season, and then he had like 12, he set a franchise record with like 13 sacks, and would have been Rookie of the Year if not for Julius Pepper. So his slow start was because the team didn't start him until, remember the Philly game where he just wreaked havoc with Donovan McNabb. His was more them not using him as a starter until he kind of got going. But he had a rookie year that should have been Rookie of the Year.
By the way, speaking of that Philly game, and I don't know if it was that year, but this goes back to undrafted free agents, because I think this guy was undrafted. Was that the Philly game of the James Mungro coming out party?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because everybody was hurt. I mean, Edgerrin was out with, I don't know if he had a back issue, and then they were going to have, like, whoever the backup was, he was out, and then Jim Finn was going to be the guy, and he didn't play. And James Mungo ran for, like, God, was 120 yards, whatever it was?
Yeah.
And if you look at his career, he probably averaged like 2.6 yards a carry. But that game, like Peyton said, well, whoever expected James Mungo to do anything? And like his first carry was like 30 or 40 yards right at the gut. So, yeah, that's what's cool. When you do it long enough, I still am very appreciative that I was around for Peyton and all those years, and Andrew Luck and Reggie and Marvin and all that he did. But what's really cool is when you see the guys that no one expected or whatever. Again, the brackets, Brandon Stokely, he had a decent career in Baltimore before he came here, but he really blossomed here. And the Blair Whites and people, Drew Haddads, people who did something that made a difference. Drew Haddad doesn't have the big kickoff return in Tampa. They don't have the amazing comeback. So those are the guys that they sort of stick with you about, you remember when this guy did that? Again, Dominic Rhodes, he and Joe Adai in the Super Bowl, they were the reason that in the defense with Bob Sanders, and people forget that Rob Morris was put back in the starting lineup for the playoffs. So that's what really, yes, the stars were great and you appreciate it.
Poor Rob Morris, man. Rob Morris, I always felt bad for because it wasn't until later, and I might have been talking to coaches about this, where I had this epiphany. Rob Morris, during his playing time, was kind of a popular fan whooping boy of people because
right.
A lot of times you would see Rob Morris coming late into a play or sprinting full throttle to come over and try to trip somebody up, and you're like, Rob Morris got beat again.
Tampa Bay game, yep.
And you later learn that Rob Morris actually, because of the cover two they were in or the zones that they were in at times, it wasn't Rob Morris at all. He was just the guy that was still out there giving everything, trying to make up for an error that might have taken place elsewhere. I think that happened a lot with Rob Morris.
There was a big play. Keenan McCardell or somebody had a long touchdown in the Tampa game, the one that came back and won. And here's Morris 10 yards behind him, giving chase, and it wasn't his guy. And
yes.
We've seen like the next week or even the next training camp, he'd say, that wasn't my guy. He was just sort of playing along, but that's what, again, Morris was a really cool guy, sort of a wild guy early on, and then he got to be, his biggest sin is he wasn't what everybody wanted as a first-round draft pick. What was he, 30 or 31? He was a late pick, 28, whatever it was. But he was a good guy. And again, as much as Bob Sanders was the reason that defense got together in that playoffs that year, they also put Rob Morris back in there. He replaced, I think, Gilbert Gardner. for the playoff run. And remember the first game of the playoffs, they stuffed, was it Larry Johnson?
Yep.
With the Chiefs or whatever it was. So
completely limited them. And,
those are the guys that are really cool to go back. Ryan Luja and Ryan Deem and guys like that. They weren't the so-called stars, but boy, they played well, and they just fit. Gary Brackett just fit what the Colts did with Tony Dungy, and it's just so, Blair White having his really good season before he had the back injury. So it's the names just flow, and when I get off the phone, I'll have 5 other guys' names will pop into my head, but stick around long enough and you see a lot of really good quality people and players come through here.
All right, lastly, chat, Pacers up 3-1. In what game of the series do they close it out, or does Cleveland roar back?
Do we know Mitchell's status yet? I've not seen anything.
Day to day.
That's not good.
He re-aggravated.
day-to-day.
He re-aggravated he re-aggravated a pre-existing injury.
Probably a calf injury. I don't know. I'd like to see him close it out tomorrow, because then if you don't, game 6 is sort of your game 7. You don't go back to Cleveland. Let's just close it out. Like I'm one of the guys.
That's right.
You just close it out tomorrow, and I think you took their best shot in what was it, game 3 when it was awful. But close it tomorrow and then prepare for who, the Knicks, Boston, I don't know, but close it out tomorrow. Just don't give them. You already gave Cleveland a little bit of hope. Don't give them more hope. So just close it out tomorrow.
I need him to close it out because I have an event on the 15th on Thursday that would lead right up to game 6. And I want to, if there's a game, then I got to hightail it over there. And it's about my convenience.
And this is all about us.
Of course.
And our schedule. I mean,
of course.
Come on, guys.
Of course, right? So We'll see. All right, Chap, appreciate the time as always.
Good talking to you guys. Be well.
Mike Chappell joining us on the program. Somebody asked me a really good question. Eddie, I'm going to test you with this. Are you ready?
I am as ready as I'll ever be.
I know the first part of the answer and the second, but not the third.
Okay.
2 teams are squaring off in the NBA Finals.
Mm-hmm.
How is home court advantage determined?
Better record, I believe.
Okay, that is correct. Now, let me go to phase 2. 2 teams are squaring off in the NBA Finals, and they have identical regular season records. How is home court determined?
Isn't it conference record?
I would think at that point head-to-head, but am I wrong?
I'm not sure.
The Indiana Pacers and the Denver Nuggets both went 50-32 in the regular season, and they split their 2 games in the regular season. Conference, I would think, you are probably correct. I mean, that would be my assumption that that's the first tiebreaker or the second tiebreaker, third, whatever it might be. I would think conference record would be the next thing they go to, right?
I'm trying to figure it out, and then I will let you know.
Because either way, anybody but Oklahoma City, if the Pacers were to face in the finals, the Pacers would have home court advantage. They would have it over Golden State. They would have it over Minnesota. And Denver's the wild card here, depending on how this works, because they had an identical record to the Nuggets, and they split in the regular season. So if it goes by conference record, let's just say theoretically that it is within conference. Although I don't see their conference record broken down, right?
So let's see. Teams that have identical records.
Okay, here we go.
Is the following tiebreakers in order.
The Pacers were 29-22 within their conference. Denver was, let me see here, 32-20 within their conference. So Denver has a better conference record. What did you say? Go ahead with the tiebreakers here.
At least this is for like the structure of like the seeding if teams finish the regular season tied. It was head-to-head, division leader status, conference win percentage.
Okay, hold on.
Record versus playoff teams.
Division leader.
Yep. Like, so if you're
Understood.
Milwaukee, you won your division, you were the divisional leader.
Okay, the Pacers were, this can't be right, 10-6 within their division. Is that right? And Denver within their division, I don't even know what division they're in. Yeah, then it becomes a whole different ball of wax. So what we're getting at is if the Pacers and Nuggets play each other in the finals, all 7 games will be played in Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
That much we know. All right, tickets to give away for Carb Day. We're going to do it next.
Sounds right to
We're
me.
going to open the phone lines up, and then we're going to determine. Eddie will let us know how we're going to give them away. Tickets for Carb Day, which is, of course, coming up a week from Friday, and it is the biggest civic celebration on earth. We're doing it next. Eddie Garrison had one job. Although he did have to sit here and not only cue up Bret Michaels and Poison, which is Bret Michaels and the All-American Rejects will co-headline the Miller Lite Carb Day concert. That is going to be from 4 until 6 o'clock on Carb Day. Practice, of course, from 11 until 1, the final practice before the race. And then you have the Pit Stop Challenge from 2:30 until 4. It is the civic celebration. I love Carb Day. Love everything about it. I love everything about it. And I guess they're okay with me saying this. I guess. Because the practice for the 500 on Carb Day is from 11 until 1, and we on the network go up. We do what's called a fax check. We go out and we test the equipment. And so usually we do that until about 12, maybe 12:15. And it is a lot of fun, actually. It's the most fun that we have all year because it's just the four of us up there and Mark, and we treat it like an actual 500 broadcast. And we just sit there and we just to work the timing of our roundies. And then Mark usually clears us like around 12:15, 12:30. He's like, all right, guys, we're good. Come back. And so we break down, we head back, and then obviously the show is from 12 until 3. It will be in the Pagoda Plaza, as all of our shows are for the fan, which is awesome. The live crowd, the people that are there for Carb Day, I mean, I love everything about that. But I was worried about getting back there in time because I'm coming from Turn 3 back to the Pagoda Plaza. And so, you know, the group here, thankfully, we're like, yeah, we'll get somebody that can fill in for the first half hour or so. And then actually Jeff Rickard is the one that said, why don't you just get Derek and then he can just sit in there with you?
And you're good with this?
So Derek will be doing it with me. So Derek Schultz and myself will be doing the Carb Day broadcast from the Pagoda Plaza from 12 until 3.
I'm surprised you would do that.
John takes over. Well, I needed somebody to fill in for a half an hour.
But he's going to ruin our show, Jake.
Well, I'm aware of that. I mean, but trust me. Carb Day, though, Carb Day's sloppy anyway, right?
It is a little bit.
All bets are off on Carb Day.
Here's the thing, Jake. Do we need to worry about his intake?
Also a good question. Well, you can come get him and drive him home because I'm not going to do it.
No, I'm not either.
No, Derek will be fine in that regard. But he will. He usually. He did tell me he likes Surfside. He did say that.
So here's another question I have about Derek. We've seen it before. The checkerboard chest.
Yeah, that and the mustache. He's a professional now that he's working for Purdue, so I think he might actually carry himself with a little bit more class.
You think so?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be walking around in a Snuggie and drinking a Lime-A-Rita like he did one time when I saw him up there. But he did tell me that he wanted some Surfside. I said, okay, I'll get you taken care of with that. And then obviously Miller Lite because it is Miller Lite Carb Day. All right. I'd like to know from each of these, I'm going to give for each. I'm going to give for each the choice. Talking about the race or talking about the Pacers, either one. And we will begin with my namesake, not really because Jake is not actually my birth-given name, and I'm not a Jacob, but we have one on line 3. And we will start there. Hi, Jacob. How are you?
Yes, sir. Let's go Pacers. Boom, baby.
Now, Jacob, were you at the game last night?
Unfortunately, no. I left my mom's house a little bit late, so I wasn't able to get downtown.
Well, that's a perfectly sufficient excuse, right?
Definitely. I did go downtown and watch it, though. So.
Did you really? Okay. And how was the atmosphere and environment downtown?
It was electric. You could hear the crowd on TV, but it definitely that flurry to close the end of the second quarter. I don't think I've seen anywhere that I've been get that loud. Everyone's high-fiving. Basically, the game was over at that point, so everyone was already cheering.
You definitely had the feel at that point the game was over, right? I mean, you definitely had the feel the game was over. How late did you stay last night?
I left after the third quarter. I had to drive down to Kentucky today for some work, so after the third quarter.
Are you in Kentucky right now?
Yeah, I came inside the car outside of the rain right now just to get on here, hoping to win some Carb Day tickets.
Now, you don't need a passport to get to Kentucky, do you? Because there are parts of it that's like a whole other country.
Yes, it is true. No, I'm in Lexington, so
Beautiful town. Lexington's a beautiful town. What line of work are you in, Jacob?
car business.
Okay, the car business for Jacob.
Yeah.
And have you been to the Indy 500?
I have. Growing up, my stepdad and I used to go almost every year. Then, unfortunately, I joined the Peace Corps, so I was abroad for a few years, but back and I'm going to the race.
Now, the abroad with the Peace Corps, Jacob, where were you? What countries?
West Africa, so Cameroon, and then I currently have a nonprofit in Ghana that I
Do you speak Swahili?
run. No, pidgin English. It's a Creole.
Okay, I took Swahili in college. That's why I asked.
Oh, okay.
I was fluent in Swahili in 1996, and I could translate the Kevin Bacon movie, The Air Up There, and then I've never had any chance to talk Swahili ever since. All right, Jacob, hang on just a second. We'll get you on the line here, and I'll let you know if Eddie needs your information. So put Jacob on hold. We'll go to Tom. Tom, what's up? Basically, what we're going to do is at the end, I'm going to award somebody the prize, the tickets here. Tom, what's up?
Not a whole lot, man. Really excited for this time of year. It's just awesome to have the Pacers and the Racers. So you gave me the option, but I would like to say something a little bit about both. First off, this will be my 39th Indy 500 in a row. And yes, I do count the COVID year because even though they wouldn't let us in the seats, we watched it from just outside the track, and we could see the tops of their helmets as they passed through the short chute.
That's
so we
cool.
were there.
Okay, that's
Kept
cool.
the streak alive. As far as the Pacers go, man, Game 3, that was a total wash. The Pacers couldn't hit the broad side of the barn, and I know everybody wants to say, oh, they switched to the zone defense, and that's what it was. We couldn't hit open shots for nothing, and it was from top to bottom. The starters, the bench players, nobody could hit anything. And then the exact opposite happened last night, and it was just extremely fun to watch. At the end of the second quarter, when we went on that run, and we were up 37 points, and the crowd is on their feet chanting defense, defense. How unbelievable was that? It was
the best part about it was the best part about it is everybody chanting defense when they're up 41. You know what I mean? Like, let's get it to 50, right?
Yep, absolutely. Well, and you can tell that there is no love lost between these teams. Maybe coming in, you know what I mean? It wasn't that bad, but these guys don't like each other.
Hey, Tom, you're right about this. Tom, hang on. We'll get your information here if we need it, or stay on the line. There's no doubt that it got chippy last night. And when I was saying that this was a series that it felt like there was no goon or bad guy or Bobby Portis type, DeAndre Hunter and Max Strus were like, no, actually, we got something to say about that. Jeff, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going, Jake?
You know, it's not bad. Jeff, yourself?
Doing great. Just driving on the highway.
What highway are you on? 10 and 2, please. Hands, we want you to be safe here. What highway are you on?
I'm on I-65 southbound.
Oh, you're not by any chance heading out to see Jacob in Lexington, are you?
I am not, but you know what? Actually heading to get our dog from daycare.
Really? How does the dog like daycare?
The dog loves daycare.
What's the dog's name?
Maisie.
Maisie. What kind of dog is Maisie?
Maisie is a Saint Bernoodle. She is Saint Bernard and Poodle mix.
Oh, really? Well, that had to have been an interesting concoction. If you don't mind me asking, Jeff, do you have a dog voice when you see Maisie?
Absolutely not. I do not.
Wait. You
Maisie, don't have a... I do not. I'm the one that she follows the commands for, so I don't really change my tone with her unless she's in trouble. So it doesn't happen very often.
Jeff, you know, I've said in life, there's only 3 people you can't trust. People that don't know how to deboard a plane in the proper fashion, people that don't return their grocery cart, and people that don't have a dog voice. It's a major wrong foot you're getting off on here, Jeff. I mean, you sound like a good dude, but you got to at least. I mean, you don't just once. You don't give it a hello, Maisie. Hello, Maisie. Never.
Every once in a while, I'll do that.
All right. Now, Jeff, are you going to the Indy 500? Is my question for you.
Yes, sir. It'll be my 39th.
39th, man. You and Tom also his 39th. 39th consecutive for you, Jeff.
No, I missed one in 2001. I was in a car accident, so I missed that race.
But you're okay now, obviously, right?
I was there for COVID. We're okay, absolutely.
All right, okay.
We're alive and well.
All right, Jeff, hang on just a second. We'll go one more here and go with Danny. Hey, Danny, what's up?
Not much, man. What's going on?
Oh, Danny Pie. People ever sing that to you, Danny?
Yeah, unfortunately.
All right, Danny, are you going to the Indy 500? Pacers or Racers? Which one you want to go with here?
Racers, going to the 500. Yes, sir.
Okay, what number race would it be for you?
This is my 30th, but I'm a little younger, I think, than the other two guys. So I can't touch the 38 or 39, but yeah, this will be 30.
Okay, so the first year that you went, is this 30 consecutive for you?
No, I missed the first 2 years of the split.
Who was
96 and 97?
Okay, who was the first the first race that you went to? Who won?
Lion Dyke.
90, huh?
Yes, sir.
That was a good race, 1990. And you were how old at the time, Danny?
I was 3.
Nice. So you have no recollection of it?
No.
Okay. The first race that you remember is what?
92, because it was so cold.
Okay. And then the first race that you forgot is what? I'm just kidding. Okay. Danny, where do you sit for the race?
Every year but 1 year, turn 3, Stan J, Northeast Vista.
Let's go, man. All right. Now, Danny, here's the last thing. Pacers and Cavs, they close it out in 5 or they come back here and close it out in 6?
Oh, they closed that out in 5. Cavs are damaged goods.
Ooh. All right. Danny, hang on just a second. Now, after all those, Eddie, you know which one I think I'm going to go with here, right?
I don't, actually. A lot of quality candidates.
They're all quality candidates.
Or,
I wish we had
do you
tickets
say
to give away.
candidates?
I wish we had tickets to give away for all.
Or do you go with candidates?
Candidates, yeah. Candidates. You know, yeah, all worthy candidates.
Yeah.
Even though technically it's candidates. I'm going to go with, I love the fact, and I love all those guys that called in, and I appreciate all of the calls. But I got to go with anybody who the only reason that they would miss the race is because they're in the Peace Corps and they are starting not-for-profits in Africa. That's pretty strong. That's pretty hard to argue. Problem is I can't remember if that was Jacob or Tom.
I think it was Jacob.
I think it was Jacob. And he got out of the car, or I'm sorry, he stopped his work drive in order to call in the program. But we will have tickets to give away more than just today, correct?
Yeah, once every day this week.
Okay, so guys, I appreciate everybody calling in. We'll come back. John's going to be on his way in. We'll celebrate the Pacers with him, and we'll get the information to get the tickets to Jacob as well. So tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, and Fast Friday, all 4 days, show live from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Now, we are inside the media center there, but you will absolutely hear the cars going round and round. It's the best. It's just the best. And then Carb Day live from the Pagoda Plaza, which is the best day of the year.
It's actually more like this.
It's pretty solid. That is one more time. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Now, Eddie, your first year of going to the 500 was what year?
2017. My senior year of high school. Had my graduation open house the same day.
Really?
Yeah. That was the year Sato won.
That is correct.
Over Elio.
Always felt like the racing gods shined down on that COVID race, the 2020 race, with Sato winning, because it truly would have been disappointing for someone to have their only 500 win be that race with no one there.
So funny story about that race in 17. Like I mentioned, I had my graduation open house. So we were not sitting with my parents. We were just a couple rows in front of them because my parents have 2 tickets, and then a family couple of theirs had the other 2, and the other couple had received 2 extra, and they're like, hey, does Eddie want to go? I was like, sure. So I went. So the race is getting, it's getting toward the end, and my mom sends me a text. She's like, hey, you ready to go? We need to get back to the house to set up. She's like, hey, you ready to go? We need to get back to the house to set up for the graduation party. I'm like, really? She goes, yes. So then I get up out of my seat, and I head down. She was playing a prank on me. So I missed the end of the race because of it. Stood outside of turn number 1, watching on the video board. I was like, really, Mom? Really?
That's not cool.
No. So I still, like we talked about last week with superstitions and whatnot, I think Elio lost because I wasn't in the stands.
What is your favorite part of the race?
Oh, the easy answer is probably the lead up to it, with all the pageantry and back home again and taps. I think I did get to witness 1 balloon release, maybe 2. That was cool.
Yeah, the balloon release thing is, I know everyone knows this, but I'll tell you anyway. The balloon release is largely
does not compare to
tribute.
What Cleveland did.
Let me ask you this, Eddie. Can you tell me the correlation between the balloon release and a lunch that you had when you were a kid?
No.
The balloon release it basically pays tribute to the fact that the first ever event at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway was a hot air balloon race. And because of the hot air balloon race, then through the 20s in particular, they would do the balloon release. Well, the CEO or the marketing director or one of them from Wonder Bread was at a race one year and saw the colors of the balloons in the balloon release, and that's why anytime to this day that you buy a loaf of Wonder Bread, the logo is the multicolored balloons. That was like that was originally brought about, inspired by the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. JMV has walked in wearing a T-shirt of the last meal that my mother ate before giving birth to me. It was a double cheeseburger from Dairy Queen.
A brazier. I never knew what that was.
That's exactly right.
What's a brazier?
Is
it flame broiling? We looked that up.
I think
once,
that's right.
Brazier.
It's some sort of having to do with the food.
Does anybody still eat white Wonder Bread? Remember?
That is a really good question.
Like, hey, let me get some white. Nobody eats white bread anymore, do they? We have to eat that crap that tastes like wallpaper paste that's dried up. Yeah.
Peanut butter and jelly sandwich or bologna sandwich on white bread.
Oh, man. I will say this. Have you ever been to Cousins Subs? Cousins? You ever heard of it?
Yes.
All right. They now, for a limited time, have a fried bologna sub.
Oh, that's Letterman's favorite sandwich.
And then, for some douchebag like me, they'll put it in a bowl on some lettuce, and I can eat it too. And I thought about doing it, but I didn't do it. because as douchey, I go, hey, can I get in here? I'm not going to eat bread. So since I'm evolving into a tremendous douche right now, I thought, yeah, go ahead and put that on some lettuce and we'll eat it. But I love fried bologna.
Do a lettuce wrap?
Yeah, I do a lettuce wrap.
Yeah.
What's that?
Just it's literally like a burrito, but instead of a tortilla, it's lettuce that it's wrapped in.
Oh, man, that's like douchey times 10 right there, isn't it?
Did the Pacers wrap it up last night, or
they
is this now going to be the hardest?
Not, because you got the sandbagging of Donovan Mitchell, right? He wasn't going to play the second half anyway, was he? Aren't we sandbagging this up?
He definitely looked. He's a great actor, I will say that. But yes, I agree. I mean, if that was a 12-point game at the half, does he go back out? Probably, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, they had no hope. So, yeah, I would fully expect. I would like to think that from the Pacers, but we witnessed Friday night, and that was so awful. Not going to think that's who they are, but yesterday was great, though. Just great offensively.
Awesome.
I love the up and down of it. The shot making, I love a good solid heat check when it goes in. Normally these heat checks don't go in. The Pacers' heat checks were all going in last night.
It was just one of those nights, man, right?
Yeah.
You knew it. It was one of those nights.
It was fun. I hope that they do. Now, I don't even want to ask that yet. So we'll talk about that when we get further down the road. Can they close it out? I guess they won twice in Cleveland, so why wouldn't they be able to close it out?
You wonder if Cleveland doesn't. I think it's a 0.5% chance, but if Cleveland doesn't just pack it in, but I don't think that's going to be the case.
I can't imagine. I think they're too talented. I will say this. They're not a hateable, other than Strus, who probably is equally, if not more, douchey than me. Strus is kind of right there.
Mitchell's a very likable player, I think, right? I mean,
yeah, there's no doubt. I think Mobley is. Jared Allen, without question, I think is my favorite on the team. I like listening to what Jared Allen has to say about basketball.
I think Jared Allen's interesting because he doesn't really shoot the ball. He just kind of like pushes it.
He guides it like Hartenstein.
Guides it, yeah.
Yeah, he does the same thing.
Yeah, very good player.
Yep.
What's on the big show today?
We're going to, I think we're going to do James, maybe Eddie Gill if he's off a flight to Cleveland, and I think Holder's going to be in here as well. So we're going to be very caller intensive as well as far as the Pacers and on the brink. Hey, Jake, back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals. If somebody would have told you that prior to last year, what would you have said? On the brink
especially even after last year, I would have said, look, they had a lot of breaks go their way last year. They have not this year. They've had to earn it.
We were talking about entertaining losses the year prior. Last year.
Correct.
And I made fun of all the nerds for saying that constantly. So now here we are. It's pretty amazing run. It really is.
So, now you can make fun of nerds just because you're a douche,
yeah.
right?
Hey, I don't get anything about Miles Turner anymore. That's weird, right?
Yeah, no
Nothing.
kidding. Listen, Miles Turner, with that article he wrote, it was brilliant because he checkmated them because now they have to resign him. They were going to anyway.
They were going to
anyway, but they have to now.
Yeah, it's funny to watch him prove himself each time he goes out there. Again, over and over.
It was big last night for sure. All right, John's up next. We will be back with you at noon tomorrow from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Thanks for listening to Query & Company.